just talking about passing the 2018 building code.
Oh, good. We'll have to get on his Facebook. Did he say something about me?
No,
No.
he just talked about me. He just
We
talked
only
about
talked
me.
about you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
He basically said that it's a good thing Lawrence got the council to do the right thing and how great it was. No, he just talked about the city as a whole and just said that it was a good idea.
good. Okay, we're live on YouTube, and this meeting will be recorded and available. We record our meetings typically when we meet in person on audio, and that's used for Diane to take care of the record. Diane's here, but she's not on the video call, but and try to take good notes and keep us in order here. But I'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum, and let's go around the table. I'll try to go from my screen, and why don't I have Julian? Can you just go around? Everybody's on the screen. Everyone who even just sitting in, and we'll have each person briefly introduce themselves. So I'm Councilor Isaac Benton, City Council District 2.
Thank you, Councilor. Let's go with Dorothy Chavez.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Chavez. I'm a representative from the Browse Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. Let's go to Ms. Karen Iverson and Mr. Ed Adams.
Karen Iverson, I manage the Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency.
Ed Adams, retired city employee and back with the city to be the project manager for the rail yards.
Thank you. Petra Morris.
Hello, I'm Petra Morris, the Council Planning Manager. Here to be support to council staff and worked on the rail yards for a number of years.
Thank you. Senator Ortiz-Pino.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jerry Ortiz-Pino. I represent Senate District 12, the downtown area, and Barelas and the other historic neighborhoods surrounding it.
This is Liba. Can anyone hear me? This is Liba.
We can hear you, Liba. We're doing introduction.
Oh, good. Okay.
We'll get to you shortly.
I can't get on the audio on my computer, and I cannot hear anybody there.
Oh, that's the problem.
That's a problem. Yeah, I don't know what to do. I've been here since 7:30 waiting for this meeting. I have a lot to talk about, and I can see you, but I cannot hear anybody.
Well, we can hear you. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Who am I talking to?
This is Ike.
Oh, hi, Ike. Thank you, dear. Okay. No, I can
Or
see you
Mr.
laughing at me,
Chairman.
but I can't hear.
Okay, well, it sounds like we'll be able to communicate at least. So
Okay.
let's keep,
Okay,
we're
that's
just
good.
doing
Thanks.
the introductions. So let's keep going. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, Mr. Gabriel Rivera, excuse me.
Gabriel Rivera, DMD, assisting Ed at the rail yards.
Thank you. Mr. Rael.
I'm Lawrence Rael, Chief Operations Officer for the city.
Thank you. Ms. I believe it's Elena Gonzalez.
Yeah, good morning, Elena Gonzalez. I'm Director of the Albuquerque Office for HomeWise, and I also sit on the Barelas Neighborhood Association. I'm an alternate.
Thank you. Mr. Eric Riego.
Good morning, everybody. Eric Riego. I'm a at-large ex officio member of the Rail Yards Advisory Committee since its inception, and also a Barelas resident.
I like the look, buddy. It's like incognito.
Right?
That's what happens when you get COVID in the world.
Witness protection program.
Thank you. Mr. Alex Trujillo.
Good morning, Alex Trujillo here. I represent the South Broadway Association.
Thank you. Ms. Liba Fried.
Hi, I'm Liba Fried from the Wheels Museum.
Thank you. Representative Garcia.
Buenos días de la Dios. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Buenos días de la Dios. State Rep Miguel Garcia, House District 14.
includes parts of South Broadway, Barelas, across the river over in Old Atrisco, and kind of have to have that blue collar neighborhood in the Alamosa district and some West Central precincts.
Thank you. Mr. Alex Romero?
Good morning. It's good to see all of you. Have a good morning and looking forward to a great meeting. Thank you.
Good to see you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Chelsea Powers.
Good morning. My name's Chelsea. I work for Commissioner Casada's office.
Welcome, Chelsea.
Thank you. And Ms. Diane Dolan.
Diane Dolan, policy analyst for Councilor Benton and minute taker today.
That is everyone on the list, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thanks. We do have a quorum, and I'll call the meeting to order. I did call the meeting to order. Next items, we do have a couple of items requiring a vote before we have a primarily informational meeting today. We'll start with the approval of the minutes from November 20th, 2019. Can I get a motion to amend the minutes as follows: to correct the list of attendees as follows: under members absent, delete James Aranda, Planning Department, and Bart Harris, Environmental Health, as they are not board members. So first, motion to approve the minutes, please.
I motion to approve of minutes, Dorothy Chavez.
And is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Senator. So that the motion is put forth. So now I'll move to amend the minutes as I just described. And is there a second to amend
again?
All right, thank you. And all those in favor of the motion to amend, say yes.
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 Or I guess we have to do roll call. Oh, sorry, forgot the Attorney General. I don't want the Attorney General breathing down my neck. So we'll do the roll call. Mr. Moya will call the voting members' names.
Mr. Rael?
Yes.
Representative Garcia?
Yes.
Ms. Chelsea Powers?
Yes.
Ms. Leba Freed?
Yes.
Ms. Elena Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Alex Romero?
Here.
Is that a yes vote?
Yes, sorry.
No problem. And Chairman Benton?
Yes. So that passes unanimously. I have a second motion to amend the minutes. I'll move to amend the minutes to change references to wheelhouse on pages 5 and 8 of the minutes to transfer table and tracks.
I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Moya, call the roll.
Mr. Rael?
Yes.
Representative Garcia?
Yes.
Ms. Powers?
Yes.
Ms. Freed?
Yes.
Mr. Trujillo?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Romero?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Why am I being left off the roll call?
Yeah, I think,
Dorothy Chavez.
yeah, Chair, this is Elena. I think I'm the alternate, so I would not get a vote. Is that correct? So Dorothy Chavez is the representative from the Barelas neighborhood.
My apologies. I'll correct that moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think
Just to
as
save
alternate.
time, I vote yes on both.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So we're back on the bill to approve the minutes. Call the roll or call the votes, Mr. Moya. Back on the motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Mr. Rael,
Second it. Yes.
Representative Garcia,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Ms. Freed,
Yes.
Mr. Trujillo,
Yes.
Ms. Chavez,
Yes.
and Mr. Romero.
Yes.
Passed unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Are you leaving out Senator Ortiz y Pino?
Yes. Senator TC I guess you weren't called on those, or
On those, I would vote yes, all of those. I thought it was because I had seconded, but I didn't. That's why I didn't object.
okay. Sorry, I think we're square now. I can help out with that next time if we need to. I don't think we have any other action items. So let's move on to the primary reason for this meeting is to get updates on the activity at the rail yards. And then under other business, Liba would like to give an update on wheels as well. So now for the administration updates on construction activity and the rail trail. Who's going to take that? Mr. Ryle?
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, good morning. It's good to have all of you. Even if we can't see each other face to face, I see most of your faces, so that's good to see. I hope all of you are healthy and doing well over this interesting time in our lives, but wanted to give you a little bit of an update on where we are with the rail yards and the revitalization of the area. And Mr. Adams will give you a little more detail on the construction piece, but I'm going to ask Karen Iverson to give you a little bit of an update on the work that she's been doing as it relates to revitalization of some of the buildings with an RFP. I'll have Mr. Adams talk a little bit about the construction portion of that, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit about where we are with with CNM and their interest in one of the buildings as well. So Karen, if you might just start us off with the conversation about the RFP that we've put out and any other revitalization sort of issues you have on the table.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Rael. Councilor Benton, we have an RFP out, first of all, for the northern entrance to the rail yards. And that is for the 3 small buildings that we've discussed in previous meetings, the firehouse, the waste and paint room, and the pattern house. And we released that after we all went into this new world that we're in, and we actually extended it. And the proposals are due on September 10th. Prior to this, leading up to it, we had a community meeting at the B Rupee. We had over 100 folks attend, and we gave them an update on all aspects of the rail yards project. We had different stations that people could go visit on the construction activities, on the environmental remediation, on the RFP itself. And on other stations included housing impacts and people's concerns around the affordability in the neighborhood. And we also had a station where people could provide their contact information if they were interested in being located as a business or a contractor for the rail yards. So we got a lot of good feedback. I think that for the RFP itself, what we heard mostly was a desire for something around restaurant, performance space, sort of in those range of buckets, which I think is sort of what we would anticipate getting in. We had two pre-proposal conferences for that RFP. The first one was not that well attended. So we had a second one, and we had quite a good attendance. I think that I anticipate getting some responses back from some more community-based groups or some very experimental and cutting-edge arts groups who see the vision and want to be part of the rail yards at its very first step. So I'm excited to see what those proposals are. But we have a couple of other RFPs in the area as well, as Mr. Rael mentioned. We just issued an RFP for the lot at Silver and First, and that is available for folks. We are looking for, the priority there is to provide housing. We really need to encourage more residents to move downtown. And then the city is also willing to lease 10,000 square feet of office space in that building, which is an important factor for help driving the deal and making the finances work. We also had an RFP for the Edo area, so kind of thinking about the crossroads of the rail tracks and Central. This was an RFP for folks' properties along Central. It was a little differently. Normally we go out for a property or a building, but in this circumstance, we had some funding that was recycled back from the old Albuquerque High project where they've repaid a loan, and they're continuing to repay that loan. We were able to make those proceeds available for a variety of projects. We received 4 qualified responses for that, and the area was along Central between the tracks and I-25, and then along Broadway and the tracks between Central and Lomas. So again, in this vicinity, we've got 3 RFPs out right now looking at funding an additional 3 projects to help bolster this area. The final thing that I'll just touch on before handing it over to Ed to talk about the construction is the rail trail. I'm going to just share my screen here for just a moment. And so this is another project that we are working on. We are looking at creating a real active corridor that, you know, the vision would be something like a High Line experience where the landscaping and the pedestrian and bike experience is very comfortable. There's a lot of public art along it. And we've identified this as a corridor with a lot of potential redevelopment opportunities. And it's an important linkage. It's also a huge barrier, as we all know, getting from one side of the tracks to the other. So right now, this rail trail would come along First Street, and this is funded in part with the funding that we got from EDA to provide streetscape improvements at the rail yards. And then it would sort of jog along and jump over here to the east side of the rail tracks. And then from here north, the path actually goes within the rail right of way. And we'd also be looking at having a crossing at Marquette right here, where this is currently a city parking lot and it's not connected, but providing an at-grade crossing here. And so we're really linking up Glorietta Station, the Convention Center, Innovate, Alvarado Transit Center, and the rail yards with a really great promenade, an esplanade, if you will. So we got $2 million in the lodgers tax was allocated towards this project. And we are also applying for an EDA grant from their COVID funding stream to fill in the rest of this to make this trail connection. Oh, and we're also applying for a National Endowment of the Arts grant to help fund the public art installations along this corridor.
Thank you, Ms. Iverson. We will be hearing, specifically about the rail yard construction next, but at this point, if there are questions for Ms. Iverson, we'll take them. And if you're on Zoom, please use your raise hand function, and Julian will call on you. And if you're not on Zoom, I guess you can speak out, and And we'll try to grab you that way. But if you're on Zoom, try to use that raise hand function. It looks like Dorothy has a question. Dorothy.
Is this trail going to be a walking trail only, or is it a biking trail?
It'll be a multimodal path, so bikes and pedestrians.
And is it also going to be handicap accessible?
Absolutely, yes, it would have to be. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Karen?
Representative Garcia's next, and then it sounds like Leva.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Karen, on the RFP for the firehouse, what does that entail?
Representative Garcia, the RFP is for the 3 buildings that are kind of on that northern entrance. It's for the firehouse, the waste and paint room, and the pattern house. And the RFP was for either a developer who was interested in taking those and rehabbing them and then finding tenants, or it was available for a business entity to become a tenant, and the city would rehab the buildings and then we would lease it to a business entity. The priorities for the RFP were first that they meet the goals of the rail yards master plan. Second, that they provide some kind of site synergy with either the uses that are there, the history of the rail yards, synergy with community, existing community businesses. There were a variety of ways that people could kind of create synergy. And then the third priority was just activation, getting people to the site, bringing a use that would provide more energy to the site. And then finally, the fourth was supporting small and minority businesses.
Okay, thank you for that, Karen. Also, Mr. Chair, and Karen, on the RFP, on the, I think you mentioned it as, or you stated it as the Edo area along Central between the tracks and I-25. What does that entail? What are you looking at in terms of that RFP?
Representative Garcia, that RFP was rather broad because we had $2.2 million available to help support infill development. And we wanted to see activation of this corridor either by creating housing or by creating employment. And so that RFP has closed and we got 4 responses. We plan on awarding at least 2 of those projects. And we really saw this as, this corridor has a lot of momentum, but it's been a long time since we have seen some infill in the recent years in that area. So we know that those projects still need a financing gap. So that was the main emphasis was bringing housing or bringing employment to the area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Karen.
All right, I think Leva was next in the queue, and then Julian, anyone else? Okay.
Oh, okay. Karen, I want to just tell you how thrilled I am with the idea of the Albuquerque Rail Trail. It's something we've thought about for a long time, and we're just so excited that you're going to do that. And of course, I want to say that if Wheels can be helpful in any way, or if we can be a way station on the trail, or a visitor center on the trail, or any way that we can help make this happen with any of our archives or our art or anything that we have to offer the public, we're very, very excited about what you're doing. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thanks, Leva. And
Sure.
yeah, I think we don't have any other questions, so we can move on to Mr. Adams, I think, at this point. Unless Lawrence wants to do any further introduction.
Go ahead, Ed.
Mr. Chairman, since our last meeting, which is like 6 months ago, an awful lot has happened. So I'm going to go over a lot of things and I'll be happy to take whatever questions. But I'm just going to go real quick over items and be happy to expand if we have any questions. Okay, from the last time, as you see the graphic there, we have removed the small building that's on front of the flu shop. So it has been removed. So the blacksmith shop is no longer tucked around in the corner in a hole. So it's opened up. As you see, those buildings are almost parallel or even with each other. We have taken out all of the broken concrete, the gravel, all of the junk that was out in front of the blacksmith shop has all been cleaned up. We have pedestrian conductivity, we have sidewalks. We put brick pavers down in front of the blacksmith shop, similar to what we have that's in the courtyard. The tracks are still there, and they are incorporated into the pavers. So that area is all cleaned up and is really nice. And the blacksmith shop is so much more of the property now because it's not tucked around in a corner. So I'm real pleased with that. We have submitted our package to the State Environmental Department for our substantial completion approval for the environmental remediation on the north portion of the property. They have reviewed it and looked at it. We've had some discussions with them because of staffing, et cetera. It's not going real fast as far as getting our approval in writing from the state, but they're very pleased with our package. So that is going quite well on the north. We have brought in Terra on board for our voluntary remediation plan for the southern piece of the property, of the site. So they're preparing that package right now, and they're working with the State Environmental Department. Our city environmental health is taking the lead on that, but it is part of our project. And we're getting that plan developed now. I believe we're putting 2 or 3 additional monitoring wells on the south for groundwater monitoring. So that is moving along, and we hope to get our voluntary remediation plan soon. Obviously, getting it reviewed through the state is taking a little more time than what we would like, but things are moving on the south as far as getting the environmental plan put together so we can start implementing it. For stabilization of our buildings, we have bid and awarded the roof contracts for the flu shop and the tender repair. The flu shop also will be having the environmental cleanup inside the building. We have asbestos caulking in the window frames. We have a little bit of lead-based paint, and we have some asbestos insulation in a few of the abandoned utilities that are within the building. All of that will be cleaned up. We will add power to the building to where it will be, you get a CO, certificate of occupancy, when this project is complete. So that contract has been awarded. Janes was the low bidder on that project. The contract book will probably be submitted to the city this week, and I expect the city to sign it next week. And we're probably looking at notice to proceed middle to later part of the month of August for construction to start on the flue and the roof on the tender repair. Complete replacement of the roof, and there will be TPO. Okay. Let's see. We are in design of the roof repairs, replacement on the boiler shop, which Karen is showing you right there. So Lee Gamelski has been brought on contract. He is the architect of record on that. Chavez Greaves is a structural engineer. And we expect to have 95% construction drawings by September for that building. We will submit that package to the SHPO as well as our code review. So I would expect that the code review process will be within a month. We'll get that taken care of. SHPO has a month to review and then comment on the boiler shop. We have been working with SHPO through this design process. We actually had the SHPO out on site last Friday morning, walked through the building. They're completely on board with everything that we're doing. They're giving us comments. So that's moving along. I would anticipate that we will be ready to bid the construction replacement of the roof and some cleanup inside the building this calendar year. We can't really control how long it takes the SHPO to give us comments. By statute, they have 30 days per round. So every time, we have to respond, et cetera. But I expect that this calendar year, we will be out to bid for the roof replacement on the boiler shop. We have consulted with the fire marshal's office, and we have an approved what's called a Fire One plan for the northern site, which would be water lines and fire hydrants for fire protection for the north half of the property as we're developing it. So that's good. The Water Authority is currently modeling those water uses. There is a 6-inch water line in First Street that we're going to be anticipating tying into that. So that's being modeled by the Water Authority as we speak. We are also in design for utilities for the northern portion of the property. Utilities meaning water, sewer, natural gas, and additional power and communications for the north. We have been looking at a corridor in the transfer table. In our consultation with SHPO on Friday morning, they're fairly supportive of using the transfer table for a utility corridor, which is really, really good news. That allows us basically to get almost free utilities to the boiler shop, because we're going to run in between there, and we'll have the ability to extend some of those to the machine shop at a future date. So I'm very excited about the SHPO receiving that request favorably. It's orally at the moment, but we're in design. Wilson & Company is on board for the design of said utilities, and TLC is under contract for the installation of said utilities. So I'm very pleased about that. That's we're gonna run sanitary. We had a problem with the storm drain that was in 2nd Street. It was blocking our access to the sanitary sewer, but we found out that if we chase it down right where Karen's showing you, it actually crosses over right at the beginning of the Wheels building, and we're going to be able to get to the sewer. So I'm real pleased about that. We're not going to have to pump, so that is a really good thing. So we'll be starting utility installation probably by September is my goal, is to actually start the utility work. Okay, we've got a federal grant, an EDA grant for $1.2 million, which is 100% match requirement. So we have a $2.4 million project. We have gone out to RFP. The scope of said project is utility work and streetscape. We have gone out to RFP. We have Wilson & Company was selected through the process. We have negotiated the contract. The contract from the city's perspective is complete, and we'll submit that to the feds this week for their approval of the design of the contract, and we'll be getting started on that design. Now I have a little graphic to show you, but I want to explain it before. It's just an opening idea of concept or some streetscape along the frontage of the rail yard property. We're going to have a full public involvement process for this. So I don't want anybody to think this is what it's going to look like. This is just thoughts and ideas. And with that, we'll have Karen kind of put it up. Okay, so that's a little large. Scale it down. So what we see here is 3 different cross sections. And the reason there's 3 different cross sections is there's not adequate right of way between the back of curb and where the rail yard property starts. So what we're looking at doing is moving this project into the rail yard property to create more space for pedestrian environment. We also have vertical challenges. We don't really think about it too much, but portions of the site are in excess of 2 feet higher than the road. So we're going to have some retaining walls in different areas to deal with the grade, but we're looking at a cross section that might be something in the neighborhood of 20 feet wide to give us pedestrian environment, streetscape, landscaping. We're looking at trying to incorporate bicycles. We're looking at a number of things. This is just kind of an opening, here's what it could be, but this will go through a full neighborhood coordination meeting and involvement process. So don't think that this is what it's going to be. This is just an idea of what it could be through this area. I'm very excited about this. We have an opportunity to make something really special and connect the yards and the neighborhood and do some pedestrian conductivity and maybe some street calming and some other things. So I'm very excited about this. We'll be starting this probably sometime in August to get started. I don't have a schedule yet of when the public outreach meetings are going to be. Obviously, we're not going to have them in the traditional sense of, 100 people in the building and going over it. We're going to have to do something, via Zoom or some type of coordination. We'll get it figured out. But I'm very excited about this because this is an opportunity to really transform how the rail yard property feels into the neighborhood. So I'm really excited about this. We're also going to be figuring out how to deal with the wheels access and their parking. Councilor, you know that you had showed me a drawing a few months back about how that might be incorporated into the street a little more directly than what it is now. All of those things will be looked at, as well as if the city is in the process of trying to acquire the triangle that's up where we transition from first to second. If that property is acquired, we'll be rolling that into this concept as well of how we get pedestrians in and through that area. So we've got a lot of things going on here and I'm real excited about that. Let's see.
Ed, may I interrupt for a second and just
absolutely
for the benefit of the neighborhood in particular, the EDA grant that we received requires a real thorough conversation with the neighborhood. So to Dorothy and all folks in the neighborhood there, we are really excited about having a conversation with you all to get your thoughts about this walking trail and about the landscaping around it, because first and foremost, it's part of the process, but it also, I think, lays out the groundwork for how the site is going to look like from the street level and from folks' backyards, if you will, to the site. The other piece that's important is, members of the committee, is that we negotiated with the BNSF. I think I had mentioned this to all of you 6 months ago. We were negotiating a right-of-way donation between the, if you will, between the lead and coal bridges south over to the rail yards, so that we could have a little bit more frontage along the east side of First Street. Well, I'm happy to report to all of you that the BNSF has agreed to donate up to 20 feet of right-of-way along that corridor, so that we can make the pedestrian trail that that Karen talked about earlier even a nicer, if you will, at the facility, so that we can incorporate, all the multi-uses that we'd like to see, and maybe some artwork and some other amenities. But it'll make the connection between downtown and the rail yards a much safer and wider connection. And of course, for us, it's also a good way to ensure that First Street continues to sort of operate in that area, as well as a good pedestrian and bicycle facility to connect the rail yards to the downtown area. So I just wanted to add those two comments on this part of the process. So
Thank you,
I'll get back to you, Ed.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Lawrence. I'll get back to you, Ed, in just a minute. There's a question from Senator T.C. Pino. I just wanted to say, though, I'm so pleased to see this attention to the streetscapes of both, all things combined, the rail trail along First, and the potential for redevelopment on First is so great when we look at it, and then this presentation of the way the front is going to look to the general public and to the neighborhood is so important. But Senator T.C. Pino had a question quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ed, you may have touched on this and I just missed it, but PNM at one point was having to negotiate with us around additional power, transformer station and so on. Has that all been taken care of? Are we going to have adequate electrical power in there?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, we have been involved with P&M. It does appear at the moment that we have adequate power. Now, that is qualified because we don't know what the uses in the boiler shop and the machine shop are going to be. So it's qualified. Until we understand that, it's hard to have a handle on how much power do we need. But I mentioned earlier that we had already bid the flue shop and the tender repair roof. We are bringing in additional power as part of that project. We're increasing the transformer that's on site to big power. I think it's the 1280 volt power, which will be stepped down to like 408. So we're bringing in good power that will take care of pretty much whatever the blacksmith shop and the flue shop is going to need. I did not go into, I have an internal design kind of going on for the tender repair to clean it up and get the environmental taken care of inside the tender repair. In that package, we have additional power being brought in via the power stations across the street, and there'll be adequate power for the tender repair. It will have its own transformer, and there will be some power available for the boiler shop. I can't go so far as to say that there's enough power there to take care of the boiler in the machine shop. Depends on their use. If it's just lighting, probably okay. But you know, the boiler shop's 58,000 square feet with a 60-foot high ceiling, and the machine shop is 125,000 square feet and a 65-foot ceiling. It just depends on what happens. But for the shorter run, Senator, we're going to be okay on power. But I can't tell you that in the long run that we're okay at the moment.
So just as a quick follow-up then, the early on there was some discussion that P&M might need to have us subsidize somehow, the city somehow subsidize the enlargement or the increase in capacity that would be needed, maybe a new station or whatever. Is that still a possibility, or are they willing to do it at their own cost?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I have not had that detail of a discussion on that item. Karen did some planning efforts 6-9 months ago, and we did talk to P&M. There is some additional power on second or third, that they thought we could potentially bring that over if we needed more in the future. So I don't think that has been answered yet. They did not bring that up at the staff level when we engaged them on a number of occasions.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I only have one more update, and then I'm happy to take whatever questions you might have. The last item is the Wheels Museum has a state grant of $171,000. Lee Gamelski has met with Liba and her folks and on the improvements, and it looks like we're going to be doing heating and cooling. And Lee Gamelski has sent me his additional service request for scope and fee. I'll be processing that in the following week, and he will be getting started on design of some of the heating and cooling improvements for the Wheels building. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to respond to whatever questions you or the committee may have for me.
Again, Chairman, if you're on Zoom, please use your raise hand function, but I hear someone asking verbally to be recognized, whoever that is.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, this is Lawrence again.
Okay,
I was just, I would just want to just say that, Ed, if you could just maybe sum up how we are as it relates to our use of the state funds that were allocated and the city funds, so that our legislators get a perspective of how we're doing with that aspect of the project, that would be helpful.
Lawrence, thank you. Mr. Chairman, we're out of money. Send money, lots. Almost all of the state grant, which was slightly over $7 million, is obligated or encumbered or will be in the very near term. The city geo bond monies of $5 million will be fully, how do I say this? Encumbered is probably the right term, by the end of the year. So with all of the improvements that I've gone over with you, that by January, all of those funds will be at work and fully obligated. So it will take us some time to work through our construction projects, but all of those funds are going to be fully committed in their entirety by the first of the year, plus or minus, depending on when we actually bid. The boiler shop roof is probably going to be $4 million by itself. So when we award that contract, I think that's going to pretty much consume all of the current available funds.
And Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I think it's really important that Ed gives you those kinds of numbers, because it gets you a sense of the magnitude and the size of the buildings, because we all see them. But certainly the $4 million for the boiler shop. Ed, what do we have for the tender repair roof?
The tender repair roof was bid with the flue shop. As an individual piece, it was $1 million. The flue shop roof and flue shop package with the tender repair was $3.5 million, and that is awarded. So those funds are already obligated and committed. The utility package is going to be $2.5 million. Just for the utilities that we're bringing into the site. The trail, streetscape, and utility grant, EDA grant, is a $1.2 million grant, which requires 100% match. So the city has to match 1.2 with 1.2. So that's going to be a $2.4 million package. And we've got other internal packages that are in design now for the flue shop and tender repair. I'm skeptical that we're going to have adequate funding for the tender repair cleanup, the internal cleanup at this time, but I need to bid the big one before I have a good handle on where we are. But my sense is all of it's committed.
So just for our legislative members of the committee and thanking, as always, you all for your support and your continued help on this project. The good news is during the last special session, there was a lot of conversation about all of these funds and whether or not we were going to be able to get them committed. And I just wanted to make sure that Senator Pino and Representative Garcia, that you both knew that that we have committed those funds. And as you know, we draw down from the state as we seek reimbursement for those funds. So we'll get those funds expended here in the next probably 12 to 18 months. And so I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And the last piece is we are leveraging any opportunity we have. Karen's looking around. As we said, we got the EDA grant. We're looking for any what was it? And a National Education Endowment grant and other grants, including getting the BNSF to donate some property. So we're actively trying to make sure that we leverage these dollars to the best of our abilities. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. But, interestingly enough, for all of us as community members, I mean, the courtyard and the work that we've done to clean up the area makes it a lot more attractive on the north end. But it's interesting to say that a lot of us don't go around walking up and looking at roofs and admiring roofs because it's just something we ignore. But we're spending a lot of money just to stabilize the buildings as we all had talked about early on, and making sure that the buildings don't deteriorate anymore. So these roof repairs and these structural repairs that we're doing will give us at least some comfort that if it takes a little longer to redevelop those buildings, at least they're not going to deteriorate anymore. And that we're going to try and keep as much of, obviously, the history and the aesthetics of the buildings intact as per the state historic preservation officer's review. And so I'm really just pleased that things have moved forward this quickly. Last piece I would say to you very quickly is I did meet with CNM earlier in the week, last week, I should say, and They are still committed with their use of the blacksmith shop. They have again, thanks to our legislative support from you, both of you in the legislature and others, they were able to get $300,000 from the legislature. And then we had a grant that the mayor was able to push forward with the National Conference of Mayors to augment CNM's proposal. So they have about $600,000 that they're using right now to do a study and review of how they would use the blacksmith shop for their film and digital programming that they do at CNM. And I have been told that they probably are looking at potentially going to their 2021 bond issue for some funds to begin to do some work and to bring that building up to speed. So they're still committed, which is a good thing, and they're working through that process. And Senator Ortiz-Pino and Representative Garcia, you know the mechanics of the state for education funding for buildings better than any of us here. So you know how long that's going to take. But the point is that they are moving forward. And then the last thing I would say for our group here is we have, because of COVID-19 and the whole issue with social distancing and mass gatherings, we've unfortunately not been able to do a lot of community activities in the nice courtyard that we have there. And trust me, the mayor has been extremely interested in activating the space and wanting us to do a lot of things there so that we could bring the community in so that folks can see all the work and see. I think once people see these facilities, as we all know, you just love them and you think, this is a part of Albuquerque's history, New Mexico's history that we have to preserve. So we are planning on some, as COVID-19, state policies get maybe loosened up a little bit, on trying to do a couple of activities out there that may do social distancing, maybe some kind of a food with food trucks, with separated tables, etc., so that we can, bring some folks to the site here the latter part of the summer. But again, we'll have to wait and see what the public order requires and permits us to do. But there is interest in at least trying to get more people out there to look at it. And as you know, the market this year has been operating out of that site in a very different manner. And they'll continue to do so through the remainder of the market season. And so unfortunately, we weren't able to do what we normally do other years, but that's probably true of everything that we have been going around in our country. So with that said, I think that sort of gives you a flavor for where things are, and we all will be ready to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Julian, anyone in the queue right now? Mr. Eric Griego had a question or a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for the presentation. I think it's exciting to see that work on 2nd and on 1st Street. I think it's been a long time in coming. So just congratulations on all the work and securing all the funding. I know it's not exactly flush times for funding. So I had a couple questions about the connectivity to 4th Street. As you all know, 4th Street is the main street in the city and the state. Others have put in significant resources on the 4th Street Main Street there. And, the original plan had, I think, Santa Fe as the main connecting corridor for the 4th Street businesses and the 4th Street Main Street to the corridor. And I just wondered whether that was part of the plan for 2nd Street and landscaping and connectivity and pedestrian access and so on. How that fits into this phase of the project, or if that's something later. We, 2nd Street's been a challenge for a long time. So I think the neighbors I've talked to are very excited that that's happening for sure. And we just would hate to push people off of 4th Street just now as we're sort of getting some momentum. And I know there's a number of projects that folks have on 4th Street. So I just wondered, what is the outlook for making sure we're connecting it? And maybe I think the current path is Santa Fe, but I don't know if that might change. Or thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I'll take a piece of that, and then I'll defer to Ed, Mr. Chairman, and Eric. I will tell you that we are very, very focused on that as well. There is absolutely no doubt in our mind that Santa Fe, that street, is the nice, if you will, Main Street into that beautiful those two beautiful buildings that sit right there at the end of it. And so one of the things that we're doing with the streetscape is creating, again, money being the one sort of limiting thing, but we'll work through that. We're going to try and make sure that whatever we do on that street on First, that we create the connection with some nice, if you will, pedestrian access across First Street so that it connects onto Santa Fe, or where Santa Fe runs into First Street and connects that whole area to Fourth. We don't have funds at this point allocated to redevelop Santa Fe from First to Fourth, but you know, the CIP, Councilor Benton, is around the corner for 2021. I think we ought to put some money in that CIP to do some of that work, some lighting and some nice beautification on that area to make it into a nice entryway. And so that's a good point. Let us look at that and see if we can't do something else. Ed, in the design of the streetscape, I know we talked about doing something there at Santa Fe and First. Any other thoughts or information about that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As Lawrence explained, we don't have funding at the moment for the connection to Fourth. But what we are going to be looking at, Eric, is accommodating that with the improvements that we make on First and Second. So we're looking at potential bulb outs and on the four corners to try to shorten up the crossing distance and make the connection and getting across First and Second at certain locations. We are looking at taking care of that as part of this project. The actual connection from there to Fourth is probably something in the future. But as Lauren said, we are going to be looking at that and trying to take care of what we need on the First and Second piece as part of the project.
So as you all know, First doesn't intersect with Santa Fe, so it would be the Second Street First sort of. So I think the question is for folks coming in and out of the rail yards now that there's the gate, that's the exit gate that's just to the north of Santa Fe and Second. So it's 2 blocks. It's 2 blocks. There's the lot that Chad Reniker owns there, the old MP side, and then there's the affordable housing project on the north side. So I guess the request is, and we could certainly work with the counselor and our legislators to see if we can get it's 2 blocks on either side. So I guess what we're asking is, and also if you're serious about getting people from the bike trail, the primary crossover from the bike trail, as you probably know, is on Santa Fe. You can access it from Dolores Huerta, but it's not as pedestrian and bike friendly there as taking it from Santa Fe. So that stretch from 4th Street to Santa Fe, which is just 2 blocks, just to figure out some ways to bump that out and make that a clear connection to 4th Street. I know the Main Street businesses on 4th Street would love that, because there's always been this concern that we're going to divert folks. I mean, everybody's excited about the redevelopment of the rail yards, but also making sure that there's a real clear connection to 4th Street where people can get, people can also. So I just, we're happy to talk about that. I just want to make sure we keep that on the radar screen, and what it would cost to sort of make sure that connection is visible and usable for bikes and pedestrians as Second and 1st Street are. So.
Really important point, Eric, and I fully agree. And we will keep that on the front burner as we approach the CIP. And of course, we have a lot of things to talk with our legislators about. But I think this is, as you say, a 2-block project to just get good lighting and make sure it's fully accessible and ADA accessible, and have that tie-in is really, really important. I see, let's see, in order, we have Ms. Naji, our Historic Preservation Officer, Representative Garcia, and then I see Dorothy's hand raised. So Ms. Naji.
Yes, thank you, Councilor. I had a question about what is happening with the office extension into the courtyard of the boiler shop. There seemed to be some confusion between the architect working on the plans for the boiler shop roof and the SHPO in terms of whether or not that building is being demolished, being addressed, being re-roofed. I know the interior part of the office that was built in later is coming down, but there seemed to be some cross communication in terms of the original office portion. That's that single story part of the boiler shop that's just right there at the south end of the plaza.
Mr. Chairman, Leslie, are you talking about the one that's inside the boiler shop that doesn't have a roof?
No, the part that's on the outside, the original part. It connects, it's there, it has the mechanical room that's part of the tender repair shop there in the corner next to it. Yeah, the inside, we've discussed it, you know, to tear down those
Right.
block walls on the inside.
Right.
But Lee wasn't talking about putting a roof on that office. He was saying that somebody else was having it demolished, but I don't see any correspondence, and SHPO doesn't know of any correspondence for any demolition request for that office space. So
Okay, it's okay. I understand your question, Mr. Chairman. That piece is part of the, let's say, the internal project for the tender repair, which is ongoing. So the building that you're talking about is the one that burned down, or burned, the roof and everything burned off of it. So there's actually two spaces. It's actually only two walls. So it's short walls and then I think some metal frames. One of them we were considering removal of. We're not, that project, the design of that phase isn't finished, but we are entertaining not restoring the one that burned down. The other one's a mechanical room, and we haven't really broached the question of what to do with it, but I was leaning towards not replacing the two wall portion. I think you're referring that to the office that burned down. But we've not made any decisions, and that's why we haven't really broached it with the SHPO yet, because that's still an ongoing effort.
okay, it's just that we'll need to have HABs produced for it. We had started that at one point and delayed, decided not to move forward with that. But nothing has been done because one of those walls, the wall between that and that mechanical space, is one of the original walls. So there were three walls to that space, and just that mechanical room added just the wall between that extension and the tender repair shop. So just a reminder that we do need to have documentation and approval prior to moving forward with anything other than restoration of that space.
Mr. Chairman, Leslie, that's fine. As we proceed with the design of the internal stuff, and we'll figure out what we want to propose on those, and then we'll coordinate that with you. And if we need to do HABs, that's fine. We'll have design group take care of the HABs like we did on the building that was on front of the flu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Next is Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ed. Ed, on the ideas for the streetscape, that's really exciting in terms of what you proposed, and actually it's not a done deal yet, but there still has to be that community participation. But it's a good start. And one question that kind of came to mind in the development of that project is kind of protections from the landscaping and also the buildings. I don't know what dispatch data has on those intersections coming from the west, up and down 2nd Street and 1st Street, you know, Cromwell, Santa Fe, Pacific, some of those other streets. But I guess a concern that I have is that if there's dispatch data on accidents at those intersections, and there seems to be more accidents at some intersections than others. We might look at some type of planning that goes into that streetscape design that maybe includes, I think they're called ballards. They're kind of aesthetically relevant barriers, really, but they're kind of aesthetically built to look like giant flower pots. You see those at the district courthouse on Lomas. And the reason for those ballards is to keep cars, mainly from drunk drivers, ramming into the building. And I know that we've had some accidents along 2nd Street where we've had cars actually go into the fence near the Wheels Museum. And so I don't know if that's something that we need to look at. I don't know if dispatch data disproves the need for that. I'm hoping that it does. But in the case where we do have some of those intersections with a history of traffic accidents, especially kind of coming from drunk drivers, that might be something we might want to entertain.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, part of that project, there will be an evaluation of traffic in the area. Lawrence has asked me to look at some potential traffic calming treatments in that corridor. So taking a look at the traffic is part of the package that we're wanting the feds to approve sometime this month. So we will be taking a look at some of that.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Garcia. Dorothy is next.
I just wanted to kind of add on to what Eric was talking about, connectivity to 4th Street. In our vision that when we started this process 10, 15 years ago, one of our visions was that it would actually connect to the whole neighborhood from Santa Fe. And one of the things that we did in anticipation of this is that we bid and got a pedestrian bridge from Santa Fe into the Bosque as a walking and biking trail. So as important as it is to go into 4th Street, which is our main corridor, especially with the main street, we actually wanted it to connect the whole neighborhood so they have access into the rail yard and into the Bosque. So I would actually like to see that connectivity go all the way to that bridge. And the other thing too is right now I know that there is problems on 2nd Street with traffic. There's a question of, I guess they've been putting up barriers to stop traffic in and out on 2nd Street. So that has been a big problem. People have complained. You hear people racing up and down. So I think Senator's idea is perfect about the ballards he's talking about. And I think we can incorporate that too with some low lighting, walking area and stuff like that. And we can make it look part of the project. I think that's a great idea. So, I'm looking forward to that and to our community input. I think it'd be great. And I have a feeling we can probably do that even sooner than we think if we can do it maybe outdoors or into a bigger area where we can actually social distance and still have our inputs in.
Mr. Chairman, this is Lawrence.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman and Dorothy, I'm looking at the Google Earth map here on my other computer. You are absolutely correct. I mean, Santa Fe, because of its connection, and it goes all the way through the Bosque, is a really good opportunity for us to do a nice entryway on that end. And it connects right to the middle of that transfer table that, for the best that we can all tell, is probably going to end up being a public space as well. That is sort of the entryway to the two big buildings. So Your comments are well noted, and let us look at this. I think, as I said to Councilor Benson, sort of hint earlier, as we do the 2021 bond package, and or as our legislators go back to Santa Fe, maybe in January, maybe there's a way to put some money in to do a nice streetscape from the rail yards on Santa Fe to create what you just described, a nice pedestrian walkway with good lighting and traffic calming devices, so that we can make sure that that incorporates the rail yards back into the community, as I think we all want. So thanks for those comments. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is really important because this is a longstanding component of the planning process that really was completed right around my first time on the council for the sector plan. And all of those recommendations, of course, are still relevant to where we go with capital projects in the future. I'll certainly, I think what we can probably do is use some of our council on calls to take a look at that corridor and work with the community on a complete connectivity over to the Bosque Trail, which we did invest quite a bit of money on the Bosque Trail connection down there. But especially with these first two blocks, I mean, particularly the first two blocks because of their importance for economic development of Fourth, that we should focus on that, but then continue and at least do an evaluation of the rest of the street all the way down to the bike bridge, or whatever we're calling it, the bridge across the drain there, and make sure we have adequate lighting on that whole portion, and that it's all ADA accessible at the very least, even for that longer part of Santa Fe to the west. So let's work together on that, and I think we can get that done, fairly equally in the near future, and maybe hopefully as at least these two blocks as part of the Second Street work. And I see former Representative and Speaker Rick Mura has joined us. So welcome, Rick. Good to see you.
Well, thank you very much. I just wanted to state one thing. It's been a long 6 months, and it looks like a lot has been done. And it's in that manner that I wanted to just state it. It's reminiscent of the problems that we had. You thought we had problems. Now we can remember 2008, and everything was falling apart. Nothing being built. The economy was in shambles. Sounds familiar. But the reason I wanted to bring this up today is to congratulate everybody, but me, to take a close look at how we can inform everybody what's going on, what happened. And it's reminiscent of now that what's going on is very little construction was going on. Housing was in the shambles. It was the money that was put aside for the Zuni lawsuit that put money throughout the entire state of New Mexico to build schools and gymnasiums and et cetera, all education related. It was those monies, close to $1 billion, if not a little over $1 billion that was spent. The timing was perfect. All that money went out. And that's what I'm hearing today. The timing is just incredible that all this is going to be happening in the next couple of months, and it's going to happen this year. And so all that should be translated into not only are we spending the money, but the fact that people are getting jobs and that money is being recirculated back in. I think that really puts a good little emphasis on what the legislators have to do to be able to take that back to Santa Fe and say, this is not just for us, but it's for the entire state economy, because this is so reminiscent of things that are happening, well planned, and are now happening. So congratulations to everybody.
Thank you, Representative Mura, and special thanks to you and some of the folks who have been here for the long haul. Jay Remby, who've been board members. Jay Remby was not able to attend today, but most importantly, really our legislators who have came through, and our governor. And I think as we approach this session, I know there's going to be all sorts of asks, so it's going to be an interesting session. But I think having an encapsulated version, I think, of what we've heard today. You know, that summarizes how we have really put our nose to the ground. That the city voters also have stepped up in a great way on what's been done so far, and tell that story to the public, but importantly, legislators this year is really important. But when we did get the big infusion from the state after the city voters had approved 5.5 million, I think it was in part because of just our connections here. We're connected to the legislature with our members of this board, and that really helps so much. And I also want to give hats off to the Keller administration for having made this a priority to really jump on it and really get it done. Money can be appropriated, but having somebody like Mr. Adams out there and Lawrence, who are people who get things done and really know how to get things done, has made all the world of difference in the recent years. So I want to thank everybody, all the board members too, and neighborhood representatives on the board, and of course Liba Freed, who she's next on our agenda, but the work of the Wheels Museum. I mean, without Liba and all that background, going way back to inception of the project, it wouldn't be happening. So any other comments on this portion or any further questions to the administration? Then we'll go to the Wheels update.
Isaac, this is State Rep again.
Yes, Representative Garcia.
Did you have a space in the agenda on the CNM Film Production Center, or was it what we just discussed in Ed's presentation?
Yeah, I think Mr. Rowell has had recent conversations with them. They remain committed to the I believe it's called Film and Media School of Excellence, to getting that component of CNM onto the site. But Lawrence,
so then let me address this question then to Lawrence.
Okay.
And maybe Lawrence has already kind of resolved this, but the 300,000 for the Albuquerque Rail Yards CNM Film Production Center showed up on a voids list during the special session in Senate Bill 5. It was one of our budget bills. So what that void list had basically projects, capital outlay projects funded by the legislature that were still not being encumbered by the local government. So what Senate Bill 5 asked the local governments to do is that 90 days after the special session adjourned, which was June 22nd, the House kind of had to stay some extra days because of the expediency of the Senate to kind of get out of Dodge quick. You know, we had to spend a couple more days there in Santa Fe than the Senate did. But the thing is that Senate Bill 5 allowed the local governments 90 days to cure the deficiencies as to why these were on the void list. And part of the solution was the local governments either encumbering the full amount or encumbering, I think it was 5% of the appropriated amount within those 90 days. And actually that 5% could be a design plan or whatever, but at least it was encumbered to some degree. So Lawrence, what have you done regarding that 300,000 for the rail yards, as specifically for the CNM Film Production Center?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Garcia, you have a great memory, my friend. You know, we had several projects in the city that fell under that bill as well. And so we took care of the city's projects. The 300,000 that you're referring to is money that was allocated to CNM for their design work. When I met with the CNM folks last week, they had assured me that within the next 2 months that they were going to encumber 5% or more of those funds. They have a contractor on board to start the designs of the rail yards, or of the blacksmith shop. So they will be sending information to Department of Finance in Santa Fe, notifying them of that, of their encumbrance, so that they can preserve that money. But because I had read the bill and knew that their project, or that those funds were in jeopardy, as you clearly pointed out. And so I made that a point in our conversation that we needed to make sure we got that money preserved for the project. So I will make sure that they follow through on that and get that to DFA as soon as possible.
Oh, great. I think that partnering is crucial and important, and I think the city really should step up in terms of kind of oversight of some of these kind of supplemental funding projects that relate to the rail yards. So
Sure.
Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Chairman, may I just say this to Representative Garcia and Senator Jerry Ortiz-Pino? Well, I just want to say thank you for giving us that extra 90 days or whatever the number was to get those projects encumbered. There were several city projects that fell under that issue, and we have now resolved all of the city's portions of it. So we're in good shape. But, having common sense and having folks like you up there to give us that kind of support really, really is crucial for at least speaking on behalf of the city and the project. So I just want to make sure that you guys know that we really appreciated that extra time.
So it sounds, Lawrence, as though from your conversation with CNM that they're aware of that deadline and that they need to get that encumbered.
Yes, that's
okay.
Correct.
Okay, appreciate that. Any other questions before we move on to the wheels report? We can, I think just to summarize this portion, we do have another meeting scheduled, and Diane is telling me that scheduled date is December 4th. I know that's pretty close to the session. So if there's, we can certainly discuss legislative strategy, if any, at that time, but I think I'd rather at least not in a formal meeting, but maybe circle back with a meeting of Lawrence and myself and the senator and the representative as to your recommendations, without going into all the prognostication and everything of what we might want to do this time. I'm reminded myself that when we got that wonderful infusion of money from the state to the project, we had an open house at the rail yards, and we had legislators from all over our region, not just from this area, that came down and were impressed by, some of them had never seen the buildings. And I think at this point, to see all the work that's going on and the fact that we've got projects out to bid. And of course, I've been the guy that's always, even though you don't see them, I'm always advocating for getting those roofs on the buildings. And I think regardless of whether we know how they're going to be, each one is going to be used, that having those roofs on the buildings and having them be safe can open them up to interim uses, not just permanent uses, but interim uses. And if CNM moves forward, we have to find another interim location for the market and so forth. But a lot is being done, and that's what I was saying. We need to tell that story and have strategy for telling that story, make sure the legislature understands, especially our regional delegation in the House and Senate understand how much progress is being made and that the money's been judiciously and properly spent. So we'll talk about that, but just so everyone knows, I'd like to have just kind of a small group discussion if we could on that and get your advice, further advice on it. So we'll move on to other business, and Liba is going to give us a wheels update. And make sure you got that just quickly, make sure you get that December 4th at 8:30 a.m. That's on our standing meeting date calendar for the Rail Yards Advisory Board. We missed one meeting during the pandemic, but we're going to try to get that back on schedule.
Thank you.
Liba?
Thank you all. Yes, thank you all. I wish we could be in person because I'd love it if you could see my heart beating fast with the thrill of what you've said today and all the long years that we've put into this. It's a lifelong dream coming true, and you're doing wonderful, wonderful work, and I think we all are, to make it happen. I want to start with some good news. As you all know, we received the Silver Iris private rail car, and we've been able to raise enough money on our own to get that approved by the federal standard. So we are ready to run that train for excursions. We're connected to the Acoma train. I'd like to ask a favor. I've asked Senator Tallman. I'd like to ask anyone who can help me. We do not have DOT approval. We've been to the governor twice, and she has given full support and said, get it done. But Dewey Cave, or whoever it needs to be, has not signed off on DOT approval. As soon as we get that, we can start doing excursions. We are working with the Santa Fe Southern, with George R.R. Martin and his team, to do excursions north. We want to go to Virgin Galactic, to the spaceport. We're starting to work with them. And we can take these trains anywhere in America that we want to. I think the tourism potential is enormous, and we hope to get other train cars, which will help us to do this. So if you can help me get DOT approval, Lawrence or Senator or Representative, we certainly need that now because we are ready to run. On some not so happy news, after being here in this building for 12 years with no problems, we've had 5 break-ins in July. We are installing a major security system, but the situation with the security on site, the 24-hour security, we used to have it. It was very helpful, but at this time, I don't believe that we are having that. We need 24-hour security. Also, the gate in front of us on the west side need to be replaced with electric gates, and the gates just behind us, should the police need to come in or fire, there's no keypad or anything. So the security system needs to be beefed up greatly. We're doing everything we can. I'm here most days watching over the site and doing whatever I can, but the gates need to be repaired. Also, I am working with the city on the art project for the projections for the rail yards, and I hope that will be included in any work that we talk about landscaping. That's with Shelley Sanchez and Hakeem Bellamy, and a group of us are working on that. So I think that would be a wonderful connection that we have with the streetscape, which I think is a wonderful thing. Also, I have to tell you that a long-term lease for us was approved over a year ago, and that has not been signed, but the city approved it and we approved it. I'd like to get that lease signed. I'm grateful to Ed for the HVAC and Lee Gamelski. We need a railing for code, and then we're pretty close to being up to code to be open fully. We have 49 people occupancy now when we don't have COVID. The other thing I wanted to bring up, we talked about money quite a bit, and I'm wondering if anyone has approached someone like Jeff Bezos. I know there's a big article in the paper the other day, richest man in the world, and he is from Albuquerque. I was wondering if we should write a letter to him and ask him for support, maybe Jared Tarbell from Etsy, Branson, George R.R. Martin's group. Have we tried to do anything like that? So those are my ideas for moving forward. Wheels Museum is doing a lot on its own. We've got a lot of new exhibits. We have volunteers coming in to help us, and we're ready to go whenever we can. So again, I love you all, and I thank you all, and you're doing wonderful, wonderful work for the state of New Mexico and the most important property we have in New Mexico. So thank you again.
Liba, thank you. I love those ideas of getting those deep pocket folks going. Fishing in.
Yeah.
I mean, this is also part of my idea, this thing of telling the story of how far we've come, that from the private sector too. Maybe we start reaching out. I'm very interested in that. Senator TC Pino has his hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. Leva, my question is about, you say you need DOT approval. Are we talking the state DOT or the federal DOT?
We're talking state, Senator. Yeah, we are approved federally. We have put our own money in, and we've done everything we can. These 2 train cars are located right up at the rail runner station, thanks to Lawrence and others who helped us, and the mayor and many of you helped us get those trains up there. And they're chomping at the bit to get going, to start making money for New Mexico and bringing tourism to the rail yards and other sites. Gallup's interested, a lot of places are interested. And the governor has said yes, we just don't have it in writing yet.
I'll try to help you with that. I'll make some calls and see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay.
Anyone else? All right. Thanks, Leva. And
thank you.
I'm pleased to hear that you're so close to having that occupancy permit. But I guess I'll just ask
thank you,
Ed or Lawrence, with regard to the security questions, how you see that. Wheels is the only kind of full-time presence on the site, and it's important that they be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Ed has been working with Leva on some security issues. Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that we're going to be repairing the gates and putting in some gates, etc. Can you just give us a little more information?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the gate that was on the north drive at the Wheels property, Wheels moved it to the south, so we don't have a gate there right now. The city's going to install a manual gate, not an electrical gate, because we're going to be moving that perimeter boundary in towards the buildings for the streetscape project. So it's not the right time to put electric gate that's going to have to be moved in a short period of time. But we are, Gabe Rivera's already got bids out for a rolling gate across that driveway. So the city is going to take care of that and get that put in the short run.
That's correct, Ed.
Thank you.
In addition,
thank you very much.
We also shifted the shift of the security there. So they are now there on an overnight graveyard shift.
Good. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I think that concludes our business for today. I want to thank everybody. And Representative Garcia still has another question or comment.
Yes, Mr. Chair. It's not regarding the wheels, but the rail yards issue from the very get-go has always, in terms of the legislative perspective, has always been a bipartisan effort. And in saying that, I want to state to the board that we lost a very strong ally to the rail yards project. He lost his re-election bid in the primary, and it was Republican State Senator James White. And as some of you recall, James White, Senator White, was the only Republican that participated in our tour of the rail yards that led to the estimation of the Big Bang amount of 7.2 million, of which Senator White contributed to. And so to me, a strong ally of our initiatives is really something that we should honor and respect, versus kind of a deadbeat legislator that regardless of party affiliation, that could care less about the rail yards. you know, and so having said that, I think you, Mr. Chair, maybe working with the mayor, should get a letter out to Senator James White and kind of complimenting him for his service to the state and his contributions that he made to the rail yards. Because to me, when he showed up for that tour some years back, and the only Republican that was there, it said a lot, and it meant a lot. So I hope you can kind of take me up on that, Mr. Chair, and kind of get some kind of official letter from the city expressing that appreciation of Senator White.
I absolutely will do that. And thank you for reminding us of that. For anybody who didn't know, Senator White, as Miguel just stated, attended that meeting, was enthusiastic, recognized the value of it. And this is why, and you know, we had other conversations, just phone conversations where I spoke to people who did not attend the tour, but you know, this indicates why I keep talking about that, you know, the regional delegation, but I mean, it's a statewide asset and important historic asset regardless of who you're representing, but that's a really good idea, and I will get to work on that, Representative Garcia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, everyone, as they say these days, even more than ever, stay safe, and we will see you in December.
Hasta la bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.